Hey sewers! In this video, we'll be using scrap fabric to make a scrunchy hair tie like this one. We're gonna need fabric, elastic, measuring tape, marking tool, scissors, and loop turner. I have 3 pieces of fabric. First one to make the ribbon, 16 by 5 inches. The second one to make the scrunchie, 10 by 3 inches. And the third one to make the band is 4 by 3 inches. And I have my elastic 5 inches long. I'm going to take the first piece of fabric and fold it twice like so. I'm going to measure 2.5 inches at the bottom, 1.5 inches up from the corner, and I'm going to connect those 2 points to make a curve. I'm going to cut this off to make the ribbon ends. You can cut at an angle if you prefer that over a curve. I'm going to unfold this and flip it inside out with the right sides touching together and stitch it closed, leaving a 1-inch opening at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to mark the center so that I can leave the opening here and it can be hidden later by the scrunchie and the band. Now we can take it to the machine and do our stitch. Okay, that is done. Now I have the second piece of fabric, folding it lengthwise, and I'm going to stitch along the edge to make a tube. I'm going to leave a 1-inch opening at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Trimmed off my excess fabric. Now it's time to turn my tube inside out. I'm flipping it out only halfway until the 2 ends of the tube meet. I'm using a chopstick to flip out the tube because I like to use that, but you can use a loop turner or any other method you might prefer. Now that the 2 ends of the tube are matching, I am lining up the ends to be even so I can sew the tube closed and make it like a donut. Now that the ends look even all around, I'm going to sew them together. You can see the 1-inch opening we left at the side of the tube is still there. I decided to hand sew this because it would be hard to get this through the machine. Now that is done, I'm going to flip it out all the way through that 1-inch opening I left, like this. And there is my donut for the scrunchie. I'll hand stitch to close this opening later after I put in my elastic. I'm going to use a safety pin to slide this elastic into the tube. And there is my opening. I gave it a little press to smooth out the seams. This is a good time to check the fit of the elastic. I don't have a lot of room to hand tie this, so I'm going to just stitch this closed by overlapping a 1/4 inch on either side. Okay, my elastic is in, so now I'm going to close the opening with a hand stitch. Top stitching with the machine is also another option. I'm hiding my stitch by picking the fabric on the inside of the seam allowance. The scrunchie is done. I've folded the third fabric piece lengthwise and stitched the edge closed and trimmed the excess fabric. Flipping it inside out and pressed it flat. Before I flip this inside out, I'm going to trim the excess seam allowance that I stitched earlier. Push out the corners to make them nice and sharp. Give it a nice press afterwards, and it is time to attach it to the scrunchie. I'm attaching it at the seam line of the scrunchie, and I'm only putting in a couple of hand stitches so it does not slide around, but the band will really hold it together. And I'm only sewing it to the top layer of the ribbon. Now I'm going to hand stitch to close this opening. Now it's time to attach the band to the whole thing. Notice I have the seam of the band on the outside. I'm going to stitch this close to the scrunchie for a snug fit. Now it's time to trim the excess fabric. I'm going to turn the band inside out so the seam is not showing anymore. There it is. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and thank you for watching. Until next time, happy sewing!